Today on the channel, I want to cover the 5 players who've taken the largest tumbles down the Islanders' depth chart. Who are they, and what can we decipher from their season this year? As always, hit that subscribe button, do not miss a video. Also, go to Twitter and follow @TLMitch. That's me. The only reason I say that is I don't want you to miss something that I haven't yet covered on the channel. I think I've done a pretty good job of having everything ported over onto YouTube instead of just strictly on Twitter. But just in case I miss something, because things happen quicker on Twitter than they do on YouTube, go to Twitter, follow me there, just so you don't miss something. As I said, I want to look at the 5 players who've taken the largest tumbles down the Islanders' prospect pool depth chart. Who are they and what can we decipher from their season? So right away you're going to say, well, how do you decide how a player has fallen in the depth chart, and how do you measure that even? And the way I do that is, just like I do with my rankings, it's based off of NHLE, NHL expected. And if you don't know what that is, it's a translation factor. So what that does is it essentially says, okay, well, player X has done X production at the Liga level, and player Y has done X production at the SHL level. What does that mean at an NHL level? Right? And then from there, you can compare and contrast players like I do. But I don't just do it for this year. Because I've got that data, I can go back a couple of years. I have on hand all the time their last 4 years. So I know their NHLE from last year, the year before, this year, the year before, and the 2 years prior to that. And so what I'm doing in today's video is I'm looking at the difference from last year to this year and who has the largest negative difference between those 2 seasons. So I flashed these on the screen before in previous videos. It's this little kind of table that I have show up in the bottom right. It's going to show up right here. So as you can see, there's a bunch of columns here: the year, games played, points, NHLE, and then growth rate. I'm concerned with that last column, the growth rate column. And if you look at Aturatu, he's grown by 23 points from last year. What we're going to be doing today is looking at who are the 5 players with the largest negative number in the growth rate column between last year and this year. Right out of the gate, Rhys Newkirk, negative 6.278 NHLE. Should we be concerned, and can we explain this? Well, let me deal with the first question first, the second question first, I should say. Can we explain this? Yes, you're dealing with a player who just jumped from the WHL level, so the juniors, into the pro ranks. The AHL and the ECHL is where Rhys Newkirk is kind of making his trade this year. So right there and then you can say, well, he's jumped up a significant ring from the juniors to the pros, and he's kind of struggling a little bit. That you can explain that. Now, should we be worried? Kind of. You got back-to-back years of negative growth there for Rhys Newkirk. And it kind of signifies a player who, like I said in the first little part there, that he's kind of struggling adapting to the pros, which kind of suggests that, not that he wasn't ready, but that it's just kind of maybe the ceiling isn't as high as the NHL for this guy. And it's still early. Like, he can definitely prove me wrong, and I can eat a ton of crow in this. I'm not immediately projecting him to make the NHL. I think he could be an okay bottom 6 player, but as it stands now, with year on year of negative growth, there's kind of like something, yep boy. But we'll see. First year in the pros, almost to be expected that there's going to be negative growth from the WHL or playing juniors to the pros. Then we have Logan Cockrell, who has a negative 8.48 NHLE. So again, just like Rhys Newkirk, can we explain that, and should we be worried? Well, can we explain it? No, not really. This is a 5th-year NCAA player. He's back for a 5th year, and he's struggling, at least on the production front. That's not good. You want to see a 5th-year player be better than where he was last year as a 4th-year player, which should have been his final year in most cases. He had a really good year, so maybe last year is the outlier, right? Where he puts up an extra 8.8 NHLE. That to me screams from last year that you've got a 4th-year player who's finally running into form and is kind of not dominating, but is standing out over the younger players. But now that he's there for a 5th year, you would think that that would continue. The fact that it's not is kind of like warning bells are going off here, going like, all right, well, that's a big drop. Whatever you put out last year clearly seems like an outlier now. So then should we be worried? Yeah, kind of. Again, alarm bells are going off saying like whatever you did last year seems like a fluke because you just regressed by the exact same amount. And we're seeing year over year regression then, right? So 4 years ago, regression. 2 years ago, regression over regression here. That's not good. Now, Robin Sahl, that's not a name you expected to see in this video. But I assure you, we can absolutely explain what is going on with Robin Sahl. Once I say it, you're going to be like, yeah, of course, yeah, no, duh. But anyways. So Robin Sahl this year, a negative 11.1 NHLE, and you're going, oh my God, what is happening? Well, it's because he's playing at the NHL level now, right? That's really it. It's because he's at the NHL level now. So this NHLE that we're seeing is almost not even NHL expected. It's NHL is, right? Like that's what we're dealing with here. We got a guy who's making the jumps from European hockey to North American hockey, and he's playing for the Islanders, right? Just that last part holds a lot of weight on this NHLE here, or this growth rate, I should say. The fact that he's playing with the Islanders and he's a defenseman means that he's a rookie. He's not playing a ton. We already know that as fact. He is not playing a ton night in, night out. He's not really going to be putting up a lot of points because he's not playing a ton. And so factor that in, like NHL is based primarily off number of points per game. And because he's playing at the NHL level, those points matter more, or the lack of points matter more. So the fact that he's not putting up a lot of points or much production at all is why that number is dropping, right? The fact that it hasn't dropped into like -20 is a good sign. We can absolutely explain this away, and we should not be worried at all whatsoever. Colin Adams is basically going to be a rehash of what we said about Rhys Newkirk. This is a player going from the amateur level to the pros, right? Going from the NCAA level playing for North Dakota to the pros, the ECHL, and more primarily the AHL, where he has 5 points in 21 games. Right, just like what we talked about with Robin Sahl, the competition level and thus the translation factor is higher for AHL than it is for the NCAA. So every point that he scores at the AHL level matters more than an NCAA point. And conversely, every game where he doesn't put up a point at the AHL level is going to matter more than the NCAA level, right? It's going to impact his score more in a negative way. So the fact that he's got 5 in 21 and 9 over 29, that's why he's dropped to double-digit negative growth. We can explain that. Should we be worried? I would not say so. I'm not going to say like Colin Adams is not going to be good, because that's not the case. He's got 2 years of back-to-back growth, right? 9.2 prior to this and then 5.9 last year. The negative 11 is a jump to the pros, specifically the jump to the AHL, where he's still doing well. He's playing on the power play. He's playing 5-on-5. He's going to have a better role next year, and I kind of expect that number to go up a bit. Do I expect to go up positive? Probably not, but it's not going to be as negative as this. Final player, Samuel Budzik, negative 17.5 NHLE growth. Can we explain this? Yeah, he's got 1 point in 29 games. Should we be worried? Kind of, right? Like we talked about this in a specific video already just about Samuel Budzik, where, you know, there's kind of a lingering injury, there's missing time, playing stronger defense or playing a more defensive role, but there's still no production there, right? Like, yeah, he put up a goal, but he hasn't done anything since either. And that's why the NHLE has dropped to negative 17.5 for Samuel Budzik. I don't think anyone watching this video, unless you're new to the channel, and if so, welcome, is going to be surprised by the fact that Samuel Budzik is one of the lowest growth rates in the Islanders prospect pool this year. If that surprises you because you're new, again, welcome, it's because Samuel Budzik is doing nothing this year in terms of production. Is that bad? Yes. Should we be super worried about it? Not so much. Maybe when the end of the year comes and he's only got the 1 point, we might look at it and say like, yeah, which that's not good. Oh boy. But let's give it a little bit more time. So that's the 5 prospects who've fallen the most in the Islanders prospect pool this year. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following. If you haven't subscribed yet, we're trying to get to 575. We're almost there. Oh, we're almost there. And if you are one of those 575, thank you, and thank you.